So here's a thought that might keep you up at night. What if we're not just on the planet, but we're acting like a disease of the planet? It's a really provocative idea, and it's the core of an essay by A. Kent McDougall that we're going to dive into today. It's a pretty unsettling diagnosis of our world. So, the whole thing kicks off with this really jarring question. Think about it. What if all the changes we see around us, our sprawling cities, our massive farms, all the pollution, what if those aren't just signs of progress? What if they're actually symptoms of something much more malignant? Okay, so the first part of this is what the essay calls a shocking analogy. And yeah, that's not an exaggeration. The whole idea here is that our civilization, well, it acts a lot like cancer in a living body. I know, it's a heavy concept, so let's unpack this thing together. And the comparison starts at the surface. I mean, quite literally. The essay argues that if you could just zoom out and look at the Earth from space, the patterns we've carved into its skin, well, they look eerily similar to the signs a doctor would look for in skin cancer. Right, so let's get into what the essay calls Earth's malignant appearance. What does that actually look like? The author draws these incredibly specific parallels between what we've done to the landscape and the symptoms of a disease. So, what exactly are these symptoms of a sick planet? Okay, first up, just think about the texture of the Earth's surface. A natural landscape, right? It's got these organic, flowing lines. But what do? We create these rigid, geometric farm fields and these checkerboard patterns from clear-cutting forests. The essay says this is just like how cancer can wipe out the normal, natural markings on skin. And then there are the wounds, the deep gashes we carve into the planet. We're talking about these massive, gaping open-pit mines, or the millions of bomb craters that pockmark the globe. The comparison here, it's to skin ulcerations, basically open sores on the body of the Earth. The analogy even extends to the planet's, it's fluids. Think about it. We've got polluted rivers just dumping industrial waste, and topsoil erosion that turns entire waterways this murky red and brown. The essay presents these as signs of bleeding, like from oozing sores. There's even this incredible and incredibly sad example of Madagascar. Seen from space, it literally looks like it's bleeding out into the ocean. But this whole thing goes way deeper than just how things look. This next section is all about cancer-like behavior. Because the essay argues that it's not just about appearances, it's about our core behaviors as a civilization. It claims we're acting in ways that are pretty much identical to a malignant tumor. And this table here, this pretty much lays out the entire argument in a nutshell. On one side, you've got the textbook definition of how cancer cells behave, and on the other, the parallel behaviors of human civilization. It's a lot. So let's go through these one by one. All right, so first there's proliferation. That's pretty straightforward, just the rapid, totally uncontrolled explosion of the human population. Then you've got invasion. Think about urban sprawl, just devouring farmland and wilderness. That's like a tumor invading the tissue around it. Then there's metastasis, which is a wild one. It compares our colonization of the entire globe to cancer cells spreading all through a body. And finally, expropriation. This is how we just take and take, grabbing all the resources and energy from ecosystems, basically starving them, just like a tumor does to its host. There's another key concept here, homogenation. So in cancer, cells become undifferentiated. They lose their special job and just become these generic destructive cells. The essay says we're doing the exact same thing to the Earth. We replace these incredibly complex, diverse ecosystems with, a simple field of just one crop. And we do it to ourselves, too, replacing unique cultures with this one-size-fits-all global culture. So the big question is, where did all this come from? Well, let's look at the roots of the disease, because this isn't some modern problem, according to the essay. Nope, it traces these, let's call them carcinogenic tendencies, way, way back into the deep history of our species. This timeline really puts it in perspective. The whole tendency to metastasize, that arguably started 1 or 2 million years ago when Homo erectus first walked out of Africa. Then, about 400,000 years ago, we got control of fire, which gave us this huge leg up. Fast forward to the agricultural revolution around 10,000 years ago, that's when we could start building dense populations and really changing the land for good. And then, of course, the Industrial Revolution just threw gasoline on the fire, supercharging everything. Each step just turned the dial up. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. Is it just a metaphor? It's a fair question. Is this a literal diagnosis, or is it just a really, really powerful metaphor?
The essay actually tackles this head-on, looking at the whole scientific debate around the idea. So the biggest pushback is that, look, this isn't a real scientific hypothesis you can test. It's an analogy. It's a way to think about things. For sure, it helps us see patterns we might otherwise miss, but that doesn't mean humanity is literally a disease. And to its credit, the essay is very upfront about the skepticism from scientists.
But the idea isn't just dismissed out of hand. It's actually got some pretty influential supporters. Take James Lovelock. You know, the guy who came up with the Gaia hypothesis, the idea that the Earth itself is like a single living organism. At first, he completely rejected this cancer comparison. But over time, as you can see from this quote, he actually came around. He ended up saying that, yeah, our behavior does look a lot like a pathogen or a tumor. Then again, on the other side of the debate, you've got thinkers like Christopher D. Stone, and his argument really gets to the heart of it. He basically says, hold on a second. Sure, the Earth's parts are all connected, but they're not connected like the organs in your body. It's not that tightly integrated, so calling Earth an organism that can get cancer might be stretching the metaphor a little too far. And all of this brings us to what I think is the most important part of this whole discussion, the human difference. Because after laying out all of these really disturbing parallels, the essay makes one single, absolutely crucial distinction between us and a mindless disease.
Okay. Look at this number, 32. This might be the most chilling statistic in the entire essay. It's the number of times the human population has doubled. Now, why does that matter? Well, in a cancer patient, a tumor that doubles 37 to 40 times is usually fatal to its host. We are getting dangerously close to that threshold.
And this is the whole point. This is the difference. Cancer cells, they're basically robots. They're just following their programming. They can't think. They have no idea what they're doing. They can't just stop. But us? We can. We can think. We can achieve a kind of planetary awareness. We can see the damage we're causing. And this is everything. We can make a conscious choice to change course. And so that's the final question the essay leaves us with. It gives us a pretty grim diagnosis, for sure, but it doesn't say it's terminal. The whole analogy comes down to this one last point. A tumor can't change its destiny. But can we? The fate of the patient, it seems, is still in the hands of the disease.